Good evening, good morning. So good to be here again with my amazing co-host, Rose. My name is Dr. Tova Goldfein. We're here at TMS Roundtable, and we have a wonderful guest tonight. Rose, can you introduce her?
Yes. This is Emily Rastas, and her brand name is Emmy Pelly Design. Emily is a chronic pain sufferer. She actually had a back injury at work, and it remained with her. And she spent quite a while resting, so to speak, and then she discovered something amazing. Emily, thank you for joining us, and please share a little story about how you changed your situation, I suppose you might say, and made a new life out of it. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So I should probably start with like a little backstory about myself. I previously worked as a costume designer and prosthetic makeup artist. I lived in Vienna for 2 years I worked as an artist in residence, and then I moved to Dublin, where I studied prosthetic makeup, and then lived in London the year after working in costume and makeup. So I was really living like basically what I wanted to do for my entire life. I was living out my dream, and things were going really, really well for me. I then moved back to Australia for 1 year. I was living in Brisbane, and it was kind of just like an interim year with the full intention of going back to Europe. And unfortunately, towards the end of that year, I had 3 injuries in the exact same place that just eventuated into chronic pain, and then drastically changed. Oh, I'm so sorry. My cat's attacking my hand. Yeah, that was December 2018 when I kind of had the worst injury of them all. It was a car crash after the workplace injury. And I then just went into a very dark 6 months. I went from having this really active, full lifestyle to being a 23-year-old who struggled to shave her legs. Like, that was actually an achievement for me. And that was just something that was so bizarre and unnormal to me. The drastic change of pace in my life it took a very big mental toll. And then I quickly learned the relationship between mental and physical pain, because one would make the other worse. My back pain would flare up, and then my anxiety would start to skyrocket, and then that would just get amplified, and the amplified anxiety would then cause other physical reactions in my body. And it was just like this toxic loop that I was basically stuck in for 6 months, and I had weekly visits with my therapist. There was one visit when we were just, I was crying, I was bawling, heaving my eyes out, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. I used to have all of these things that I lived for, and now, like, I don't even know if I can be a costume designer anymore. I don't know if I can have my career. I can't see my friends as much. Like, this is not the life I want to live. And she was like, okay, well, let's start small. What makes you happy? And I was like, well, my housemate has these 2 little cats, Lulu and Lola, and they just, when I'm with them, I don't really think about my pain. I'm just so distracted. And she goes, this is awesome. Spend as much time as you can with the cats. And I was like, yeah, but what about when I'm not at home? Like, I want to be out of home more. And then we kind of discussed it, and she was like, well, just get a bit of faux fur. And then all of my costume design skills came rushing back to me. And I was like, well, actually, maybe I could put the whole faux fur in my pocket. And that idea kind of stuck with me for about a month. Like, I put the faux fur in, and I was using that as a calming stimulus, the touch and tactile as calming. And then there was one day, I remember it so vividly. I was laying back on the couch, and it's not often that like I'll spring into position because of the back pain, but I just bounced up, and I was like, oh my God, this has so much potential. This could help so many people. And the whole concept of a wearable stress ball just kept developing, and I kept adding little motifs and little fiddly objects inside a denim jacket. So that's how I came up with my current brand story.
Unbelievable.
And then? Can you show?
Yeah, absolutely.
Spare a minute and go. Is that the original jacket that's got the little marbles? And can you go through all the components that you put in it?
Yeah,
Emily's
absolutely.
design capacity is just wonderful anyway. And I've seen her previous work. and she's designed and done beautiful painting as well. But her design portfolio is really lovely, and she coming up with this sort of just adds to her dimension. But Emily, hold the jacket up and go through it. Yeah,
absolutely. So I guess the first element of the jacket is design, because for me as a designer, I really fully believe that fashion has power and function. So it's about giving confidence and wearing something so cool that you just feel powerful. So that's, stage one. And then stage two is adding all of the little tactile fiddly bits. So here we've got the faux fur pockets. And so that's really soft to touch. And then I've got in the bottom cuff of the jacket, there's a little marble inside, and you can push it side to side. So it's got this nylon material that's hundreds of pieces of fabric weaved together, and then when you bend it, it creates tension. And with the marble inside it, it's a really fun feeling under your thumbs, and it's just something you can mindlessly do. Then we've got in the cuff, there's a little elastic pull. So it's instead of you've got just something to pull down. In a few jackets, I've put them in the bottom cuff so you can put a thumb through it and pull down. It's just basically what fits the jacket that I'm making ergonomically where things should go. And then inside the jacket, I've got a little maze. So this is a little marble that can go across. And this is something that you can just play with, and something to kind of focus and put your energy into when you're feeling in a moment of anxiety, because often if you can put your energy and focus onto something else, you can get yourself out of that, amplified anxiety state and then start to think logically. I know that for me, when I'm in the middle of an anxiety attack, my thoughts are completely illogical. They don't make sense. And really bizarre kind of thoughts that would never ever happen, but that's just what my brain is doing. So, getting yourself to that calm state so you can think logically is kind of the point of my design. And then another tactile element. This one's just a bag of beads as well. I've also made.
And where is that? Is that on the bottom
the other side? So when the jacket's open, you've got.
Oh, okay.
These ones. And I also just want to mention that this jacket is made with plastic, so you can see the prototype and what it looks like. The other jackets that I've been making are made with 2 layers of cotton, so you can't actually see what's inside. So this is just for the purpose of demonstration.
Oh, amazing. And so what's the connection? I mean, there absolutely is a connection, because my experience of this is always with maybe children that are special needs or autistic, and yet they're highly intelligent children. Mm-hmm. So, but I've never thought about with anxiety, and it makes so much sense, because, Rose and I talk about breathing to get you in the moment. So if I can breathe and touch something, it's like I almost can stay in the moment. What do you think, Rose, about that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Tell us, Emily, about the cat. I think for people that, they love their animals, and often their animals are preeminent in their lives. And, and they give them the calming experience. But then, as you say, they've got to go out, and they can't take the cat with them or the dog with them.
Yeah, I do really practically take a cat with you.
Talk about that. Before you talk about that, let's just answer this question, because it has to do with the jacket. It's from our new friend Barbara Goldman from Washington. This is an interesting question. Could this jacket help people with hair pulling disorders? Trichotillomania. I've heard of this. Think?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a medical professional, so I cannot guarantee anything, but that is the intention of my design, to create something else that you can pull on rather than your hair.
Yeah. Emily, show Barbara the elastic, because that's
the elastic. So this is,
see, that's the distraction that she's got there if you want to pull your hair. The only thing is that the hair pulling also creates some pain and it's a distraction that way.
Right.
So you'd have to consciously pull that when you want to do this. Yeah.
Has anyone ever said anything to you about biting nails or things like that, like those the habits that we, sort of destructive to the body?
Absolutely. Actually, it's really interesting. Like, I became incredibly passionate on this project about 15 months ago, and it just became pretty much everything I talked about. And following on from that, my friends would come up to me and be like, Emily, I didn't even realize that I fiddle, and I do this, I have this anxious tendency, and I do this, and like, it's just kind of interesting to make people aware of what they're doing. And I do have a friend that chronically bites their nails, and I was like, please stop, please stop. And I designed a little tactile toy. This was before I had the basically the financial backing behind me to get all of the tactile jackets that I've made done. I just made them a little tactile toy to keep in their pocket. And I was like, anytime you want to bite your nails, me yelling no, and then hold this toy and just squeeze it. And they haven't bitten the nails for like 2 months. So that's an achievement.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. So let's talk about, we have a lot of people in our listening who are really animal lovers, like beyond. So tell us about the cat, which was part of the story, and the faux fur.
Yeah. So the original 2 cats were my housemates' cats, Lulu and Lola. They would literally follow me around the house everywhere. And they also knew when I was having a pain flare up. Like, if I couldn't get out of bed that day, one would stay by my hip, my left hip, where my pain is, and then one would stay by my feet, and they just wouldn't leave me the entire day. And it was a lot of comfort as well, because my parents had, like, straight after my accident, I moved down to Victoria, Lower Australia, and my parents moved up to Queensland. So it's kind of like I was moving back home, but my parents weren't here. So I was like, I was a little bit lost and unsure in that way. But then I had the company of these cats, and I was, I had these 2 little things that were always there and could always make me happy and distracted. So then after I moved out of that share house, I got a foster cat. And after 3 days, I just fell in love with him. And I think I asked about 20 people. I was like, should I adopt him? And every single person was like, 100% yes, you have to adopt him. So, I gave in, and I've had Sam for nearly a year now, which is lovely. Sam is 100% just my homecoming stimulus. I mean, I've designed these jackets for when I go out, but if I'm having a pain flare up, or if I'm at all anxious, I just pick up my cat, I hold him close to me, and he'll immediately start purring. And also, there's a bit of scientific proof behind the purr of a cat being very calming. So, yeah. And another thing I might mention, it's not a big deal, but it's a little bit funny. I hated cats growing up. I hated them. I have an older sister who is 11 years older than me, and being the youngest kid of 6, you kind of you want to be like your older siblings. And only having one sister, I copied her a lot, and she's not a cat lover. So I grew up thinking, yeah, I hate them too. They'd come near me and be like, psst, go away. But now I can't get enough of them. I think all my crazy cat ladies come out now.
I love that. Emily, one of the wonderful things that you wrote on your website, which I was quite thrilled that you actually spoke about, was about touch and how important touch is, and especially with relieving anxiety. Can you just talk a little bit about that and how you came to that conclusion, whether it was Shane or how you actually realized? Because in actual fact, our brain, apparently, from learning about Montessori background, our fingers, the tips of our fingers, have got the most sensors to connect to our brain, so that our learning becomes tactile. And that was one of the lovely things that I thought, that scientific understanding, whether or not you intended to do that or not, but you actually put it there in your website. And would you be able to just comment a little bit about that?
That was definitely intentional. I have a wonderful mother who has been a midwife for over 40 years. And when I was growing up, she introduced this thing called Healing Hearts. And basically for someone who's grieving or has been diagnosed with an illness, just anything where your tension is heightened, there's this little heart like this big, and it's made of felt, and it's got some stuffing inside it, and it's designed just to hold and squeeze. So I remember when I had anxiety in primary school, Mum gave me a heart to have in my pocket. When my grandma passed away, I had a heart in my pocket. When I lived overseas and I got homesick, I'd have a heart in my pocket. And so I think unconsciously this definitely inspired the design, because it was being able to focus on something else and squeeze something else, have that tactile distraction in your hand, was just a comforting distraction. And then upon this idea and talking to the myotherapist about the cat's touch and how to replicate it, I just started doing a lot of research and really opened my eyes and found out that all of the senses have a calming stimulus. And touch is just something, touch and sight are things that I can really hone into in my work.
Yeah. Well, actually, touch is the amazing thing with attachment as well. You know, like when you're a tiny baby and you're being held, and you can touch your mother's face or whatever. So all of those calming things come back unconsciously. And that's what I loved about the way Emily presented this project. And I was very keen for she to come and talk about it, because there's so many benefits that people could have just by knowing that they've got it. And, you know, I sort of framed it in social anxiety, because one of the things that Emily spoke to me about earlier on was the fact that when she goes out, she's got her jacket. So can you just talk a little bit about that, Emily, and sort of share how putting on the jacket, like just all that physicalness of doing that when you're preparing to go out and socialize, and that self-conscious.
It's kind of like, it's almost a security blanket in a way. Like, it's this item of clothing that gives me power and lets me know that if something happens, like, you know, as an anxiety sufferer, you tend to think of worst case scenario and plan for the absolute worst thing to happen. And so it's kind of like this, well, this is my contingency plan. If something bad happens, I've got 6 tactile elements that I can suddenly play with. I've got this jacket that makes me feel really trendy and cool and powerful. And for some people, wearing a statement item might be really difficult because it's a conversation starter and they don't want people to come and talk to them about it. But for me personally, I love color and boldness and pattern, and it just makes me so happy. And when someone comes up to me and says, hey, that's an awesome jacket, that just gives me even more confidence. So yeah, that's the intention of my design, to create confidence and calm in a wearable item. You know, fashion doesn't have to just be to dress your body. It can have function as well.
And you know what Emily's saying? She's saying, I'm worth taking care of. I'm valuable, and I'm worth taking some time, finding something that makes me happy. Like, all the time that Emily's spending thinking about what she can do to keep her moving forward. It reminds me of, remember our first guest, Rose, where the woman took, you know, she knew she wanted to start meditating and be calm and have a space for her. And she took a room and she completely did it over for her space, for her room, with books and papers and things. And it was like, forget even just the room. It was the time and attention that she put on herself. So underneath it, we're talking about self-acceptance, self-care. It's really beautiful to hear what you're saying. Really beautiful.
Do you know what? I can definitely resonate with that. If you ask any of my family members, they would say that I was an absolute grot growing up, that my room was always messy, and that I never really took care of myself or my possessions. And that was really evident when I was living with my sister in Brisbane, and I was definitely in a depressive episode. I'd had quite a few things just happen and some trauma build up that I hadn't dealt with, and it was all just consuming me. And my sister, she would get home from work and kind of have a go at me. She'd be like, just do some exercise, just clean your room, like just do these things and you'll be better. And I'd be like, you don't understand. Like, I don't one, I don't want to do these things, but two, I can't. I don't have the motivation. And I'd get angry at her because I'm like, you can't understand what I'm going through. And then 2 years later, actually a few weeks ago, I was on the phone to my dad and I was like, oh, if Cassie could see how I live now, like, I don't know if she'd be proud because she probably would have just like expected it when I was living with her, but I think that she'd be happy that I've kind of come into my own and like on my own terms, I've become that person. Now I've got a sense of pride, and the first thing I do when I wake up is clean my unit. And I can't function as a person until I've got my space ready. And like my unit right now is just a rainbow. There's color everywhere. I've really curated it to be my happy place because I work from home. I spend so much time here. You know, your surrounding definitely impacts your mood. And if you can tidy it and clean it and just make a bit of organization, then it definitely does make a difference. But again, like me, I couldn't listen to someone else and have them tell me to do it. It took 2 years for me to do it on my own.
That's perfect. That really is. It sort of develops that whole idea of having the confidence to actually step out on your own, anxiety or not. But, you know, that confidence to just be there. Yeah. And look, Emily, the other thing is, I don't know, have you brought any of your colour design besides the jacket? Oh, I just want to mention, or would you mention, how you've come to decide on the type of jacket that you're using? Because really, I think the term is slow fashion. Is that how it's termed?
It is.
Can you talk a little bit about that for us? Because that's something else wonderful that she's come up with.
So, I mean, everyone around the world knows that 2020 has been quite a difficult year for business. And I had the intention to release a Kickstarter for Emily Pelly in March at the beginning of the year to raise funds to get the clothing manufactured. Basically, with chronic pain, I was like, well, it's obviously smarter if I get someone else to make my clothing for me. And kind of was going down that route for a long time. I postponed it until August because of COVID and Australian bushfires, like everything. But then, unfortunately, the campaign didn't work. So it did run for 45 days and it didn't reach its funding goal, which I kind of half anticipated. I was like, I mean, there is a global pandemic going on. But that then pushed me to say, well, okay, I can't get the funding to get clothing manufactured, but I can get existing clothing and make it up the way that I did for my jacket, because something that really, the most difficult part of garment manufacturing for me is cutting and like, you know, pinning fabric and cutting it out and leaning over the table. So if I can eliminate that step by getting an existing jacket and then, you know, adding all of my designs and all the tactile little bits, it saves me time, it saves me pain, and it also supports the slow fashion movement. Like, the fashion industry does have a lot of waste. And I've started doing is I go to op shops and thrift shops and I get all of my materials and then I come home and I wash them and I cut them up. Like, for example, I do crochet blankets. I cut them up and then put them in jackets. So
amazing. Beautiful. Beautiful.
And then so I've got so many crochet blankets from the op shops next to me, but it's about reusing materials that are already there, because I don't need to go to the art shops and the fabric shops and buy brand new things when, you know, I can help the environment and help slow fashion.
It's amazing.
Yeah. The other thing is, Emily, have you got any of your beautiful paintings? Or she does these beautiful design, sort of color design. Oh, wow. There we are. Look at it. Yeah.
And then if I spin around, they're really everywhere in the house. Painting is actually something that I didn't realize that I loved until after the onset of chronic pain. I painted a little bit in high school and then just pursued fashion completely for 6 years, and then was in a state where I couldn't do anything. And I was like, well, I need to be creative. And I just started doing, if anyone's heard of the medium pour painting, it's very, very simple. You basically just layer acrylic paint on top of each other in a cup, and then you can tip it and tilt your canvas. And it's quite meditative because you can watch the paint pour around the canvas and slowly blend together. It's a really beautiful process. And then I guess 6 months after I started doing that painting, I then developed my own style of mixed media, and now mainly do that more than the pour painting, but still do it sometimes as a meditative practice.
Amazing.
Lovely. Yeah. Do you do it slowly?
Yeah.
Just talk a little bit about that for a minute, because it's sort of like breathing and like being
it's being very present
in the moment. Being in the moment, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I have a little setup in my shed outside. I've got a 3-meter table that I put a blank canvas on, and I have about 5 different types of mediums, like spray paints, oil paints, acrylic paints. They're all spread out around me, and I just let my hands create. I don't think about anything. I just let my emotions out of my body, and I swear I can go into my studio in the foulest mood. I could be so angry at the world, and then an hour later I'll come back out and I've just, my body, my shoulders are sitting down. They're not as tense. Like, everything becomes so much nicer. I wish I had have discovered it so much longer ago, because it's such a great release of emotion. And also feeling the paint in your fingertips. Sometimes it gets like a little bit messy, but even just putting your hand in some paint and then like throwing it at the canvas is so cathartic. It's really good.
We've got an up and coming Pollock there, have we?
Maybe.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. But again, she's got the reason, like, if you think about it, it's going back to your fingers and the tactile experience. And also, you know, when we're angry, we repress that feeling, or many of us do, and it goes into the gut. And then it's not allowed to be acknowledged. Whereas when you're doing something with your hands, you're actually, those striated muscles are being operating, and the emotions can come up. And the other thing that I've observed is that when Emily's doing that work, she's allowing that the tension to go from her body into the painting, into her hands, and she's doing something about the tension. So thank you for sharing that, Emily. Let's go back to the cat. Oh, sorry, Tova.
There's a lot of people watching. No, I'm sorry, Rose.
No, you're right.
Interrupting. No, I'm not sorry. I am sorry. I'm not interrupting. Rose and I have to have a little dance every week before to get it. It's a nice dance. You know, I'm I'm a little bit tough love with my patients, and you know, you have to decide who to be tough love with and who not, and the timing of tough love. But I'm bringing that up for this because what you're telling us is that you're not waiting to live your life. You know, when your pain goes away, I'll live my life. Like what John Lennon says, life is what we do while making other plans. I'm not going to wait. So I might tell them, get back to work, get back to playing music, get back to doing art. Just do it. And a lot of people are doing it. Like I know Gail is watching, and she's an artist, and she talks about, and she's still dealing with some issues. And I think that it's so important. And John Sarno says this, you know, go back to your life, go back walking, go back to the pool, go back to work, go back part-time. And what Gail just said is play. I mean, and then we're back to like what Norman Cousins says, which is laugh. And what makes us happy makes us, our chemicals change. It's a direct brain. The brain's like, oh, I don't have to protect. Yeah. Oh, there's nothing out here but pure fun. And so between the cat and the faux fur and the beads and the marbles, I mean, it's like it's like a perfect storm, I call it, you know. And what I see, I keep thinking about the children, the autistic children, the special needs. I see this being an unbelievable, like they're making the pens with the top on the pen so they can, you know, they hold the pencil.
Okay.
You hold the pencil, and then it's easier for them to touch it or something. But what I was thinking of is a book that I read called The Power of Habit. And for example, there's a lot of studies in businesses, how to have a good business and how to, follow good habits. And it's a psychological book because in order for us to have a new relationship with pain, it's kind of like a new habit or a new pathway. We're making it more a pathway. And all that to say is there's an example in the book, and he talks about a girl biting her nails. And basically she gets a tingling in her fingers, or we get a feeling of anxiety. We get like a feeling of pain or something. And then we react. We don't respond. So we have to learn to respond, which is the new pathway. So what this example is that she gets the tingling in her fingers, and she has to not react and bite them. She has to do something else, like play with her fingers, eat an apple. So it's exactly what you're doing. It's exactly what you're talking about. It's not a distraction. It's like a healthy shift. What do you call it, Rose? Not like we're distracting the body, but we're shifting it to a healthier, or we're telling the body there's no danger. How would you explain exactly what's happening in the brain when Emily's touching the fur? Something's shifting in your brain.
She says it's a distraction.
Yeah. Exactly. Amazing. And, but it's not distraction like the ISTDP, like you're not dealing with it. It's a different kind of distraction. Do you know what I mean, Rose? Like,
not really.
Well, people who are going out running and jogging all the time, they're sort of distracting themselves from but not dealing with the feelings. I think when we're about touch I think it's something different. So I don't want to call it distraction. It's a shift of energy or something. And what Gail is saying, it's like neuroplasticity. Go ahead.
It's almost sending the brain waves to a different sensation. Like it's
yes. The senses. Yes.
Can I just go back to Emily for a minute and get her to tell us about what she does with the cat now? Like she's doing all this designing, and because of COVID, she was telling us earlier on that she now makes really funky masks for people. Have you got one around?
This is so bad for someone that's making and selling face masks to not have one on me.
Maybe it's in your pocket of your jacket.
Anyway,
so Gail, who's our in-house artist, says that art heals even if only watching someone create.
It's there's a big trend on social media for time-lapse videos of art. So these are the face masks that I was making. I made them with ties rather than elastic because for me, I don't even like wearing my glasses. They hurt my ears. So I just wanted something that I could tie around my head. And throughout the duration of the Kickstarter campaign, I made over 3,500 in face mask sales, which put me in the position to be able to then buy all of the materials that I needed to make the jackets, which was really great.
Amazing, isn't it? Yeah. Part of healing is about attachment, about repairing previous attachments. And when Emily was talking to us, she was telling us about what she does with the cat now between working in her studio in the different areas. Like she's got one sewing room area in her apartment, and then she's got her shed for her painting. But tell us about you and the cat when you go for a walk.
Well, so my boyfriend did get me a cat pram for Christmas last year. It was probably the best present I've ever received. I actually it was at a really big friend's Christmas party, and they read out my name, and I looked over and I thought it was one of those strollers that you can use when you go to the supermarket. And I thought someone was just like making a bit of a joke about my like being a bit of a grandma with my chronic pain. I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, wait, no. And then someone's like, Emily, it's a cat pram. And I stood up and I fell to my knees. I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. It was really, really good.
What's a cat pram? A straw. What?
So it's like a stroller, but then it's got a mesh cover in front of it so Sam can't get out. I love it. It's so good. And we go on walks at least a few times a week. Like with my pain, I've learned to listen to my body. That's a massive one. Sometimes my body needs me to lay on the couch with the heat pack for an hour holding my cat. Sometimes I need to exercise and stretch and do movement. Like it's just, I listen to what my body needs. And actually more often than not, it is movement. So I put Sam in the stroller and we go around the block a few times. He loves it. He just sits there and he just looks around.
But think of the connection that Emily's creating. And, you know, like we were talking a few moments about the connection with her fingers and touch and working the striated muscle. But now we're talking about attachment and how she's giving a special place to her animal, but she's also giving a special place to herself.
Right. And
she's creating a healing moment actually in her walk. And even for people who are watching, and even if they're just walking to their letterbox, as Dr. Sano says, even if it's difficult to get there, do it anyway, and see the joy of the sun or the rain or whatever that's coming down on you, and feel that experience in the moment. And as Emily was talking, I was thinking about, you know, like we're just coming out of winter now and rain and overcastness. And now we've got spring coming around, and I thought as she's doing her walk, she's not thinking about the pain that's going to come up in 5 minutes, or, you know, that the pain's going to be terrible in the next half hour. Can you just talk a little bit about that catastrophizing that you were saying about before, how you anticipate something going wrong even before it goes wrong, because you don't understand the present moment, but by taking the cat out for the walk, you're in that present moment, and then the pain just subsides and you can be present with the cat. It's just a lovely way of putting it.
That is something that my brain automatically does every single day. I can think of the worst case scenario in almost anything. And I've kind of just recently taken control of it and not let it control me. I control it. So if it takes me a few extra minutes, I will put something in place to avoid that happening. Like if I can give myself an extra kind of sense of security, it's completely dependent on different situations, but it's kind of just, it's either making a plan, a contingency plan. It's like, okay, so worst case scenario is this, and I'm going to plan in my head, but I know that it's never going to happen. It's kind of like a peace of mind thing. And that's, I just look for ways that really fast, simple ways that I can give myself peace of mind. And another one is always saying, okay, well, how much is this going to matter in 10 years time? This one moment that I'm amplifying so much in my brain right now, if I look back to when I was 15 and the moments that I thought were going to be life-changing, I'm like, nah, they didn't mean a thing. Like they were just a little blip in life. So it's putting things into perspective and also just making that contingency plan to be able to live life happily. You know, life's a lot easier without anxiety.
Now, look, Emily, tell me, if you can, how that connection, how would I put it, joined, did that arise out of your work, is what I'm trying to ask you. Did that arise, that understanding, like the contingency plan, like you've got all the masks, for example, that you've got to make and you've got to buy the material. Would that have created panic for you? And then did you decide to plan it out? What can you give us an example?
Well, there was an announcement in Victoria when, like, the day before, it was mandatory that all Victorians had to wear face masks. And I'd had face masks on my website for about 2 months, and I was getting maybe like 5-10 sales a week, which was completely doable. I could make them up and post them out. But then suddenly I got 72 orders on a Friday, and people wanted them by the Sunday. I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. This is so much. And I sat down and I was like, okay, well, I physically, even if I had like a perfectly functioning body, I physically couldn't make these all by myself. So worst case scenario is I don't get them all made, but every single person that follows my business knows that I've got chronic pain and knows that it's a one-woman show. So worst case scenario, I have to contact a few people and say, hey, I'm so sorry, I didn't get it made. I'll get it done for you tomorrow. So that's worst case scenario. To help this situation and to make my life easier, I'm going to delegate. So I got my boyfriend to do all the cutting and the ironing, and I took another step over, and I delegated, and I put responsibility in other places so it wasn't all on me. And it took me about 2 hours to put that in place, but those 2 hours were so worth it because it saved me, like, you know, hours of panic and stress over that weekend. And I actually ended up getting all of them made by the Sunday night. It was quite an achievement. Another thing that, like, I've learned through this experience is that my body is capable of so much more than I realized. Like, when this first happened to me, I thought that I would never sew again. I thought my life was over, and I was like, well, I'm just going to be basically bedridden for the rest of my life. And in the past 30 days, I've upcycled 45 jackets, and I've just proved to myself that I can push through it. And yes, it gets really painful if I over push myself, but then I just go lay on the couch with the heat pack and my cat, or I go for a walk, or I listen to my body and I do what it needs. And then I get up the next day and I start again. And I've found something that I'm passionate about, and that keeps pushing me forward.
Emily, one of the lovely things you brought up, and just for other people that are watching, you delegated.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people with chronic pain don't and can't.
Did
you find that
it's very hard to ask for help? It can be very debilitating as well, especially when, like, the people around you don't have chronic pain, and you're like, they don't understand. They probably just think I'm being a little bit of a wuss, or, you know, being too needy. And it's very difficult to kind of swallow that pride and say, hey, I need a bit of help. But I think the biggest lesson I've really learned in the whole process of this is just being kind to myself, because I don't have any control over the fact that this has happened to me, but I have control about the way that I react and the way that I interact with people. I mean, if I was to vocalize every second that I was in pain, my mouth literally would never close. So you pick and choose your moments, but, you know, also pick and choose people around you that are empathetic and love you and support you. You know, it's choosing the right people and also swallowing the pride.
Yeah, tell me about swallowing the pride, because I think with chronic pain, sorry, let me put it another way. That sense of just sort of shutting myself off and then asking for help is sort of like stopping that sense of, well, I can do everything without needing anyone to support me. Can you sort of talk a little bit about that? You know, that sense of, well, you know, I've got this project and I'm going to do it completely on my own. And then realizing that it's not possible. And you said swallow your pride, but in a way, it's not really swallowing your pride, is it? It's actually sharing your yeah.
I guess it's maybe just like the acceptance of being vulnerable as well. That
self-compassion.
Yeah. Because there are definitely some horrible people in the world that will bring you down, but like 90% of the time when you open your heart and you're vulnerable and you kind of show true intention toward like whatever the scenario is, then like by human nature, people will want to help. It's
exactly. But it's that inner self that sort of says, well, you know, they won't understand. You know, nobody really understands, because chronic pain is silent, and, you know, it's not like you've got a wound, an open wound, or plaster on your leg, you know, or, you know, that sort of thing. So it's swallowing your pride is sort of like not really. It's a sort of it's sort of putting yourself last in a way.
It's also like I don't know if self-worth is the right word, but reminding yourself who you are. Like, I constantly will be like, I know who I am. I know that I am doing my best. I know that, like, it's the self-affirmation that you are who you are. You are enough just as you are. The best that you can do is the best that you can do. You can't do anything but your best. And once you kind of accept that, you're like, well, with this Kickstarter, I mean, I didn't reach the funding goal and I could have really let it destroy me. But I was like, I tried my absolute hardest. I gave it everything I could, and that's all I can ask of myself. And I just move on to the next thing now. It's it's all about the attitude, and I definitely have not had this attitude forever. Really, like, the first 6 months of 2019, I was very dark and very bitter and really not this positive. It took a long time of self-analysis, self-discovery, forgiving myself, setting boundaries. Like, it was a combination of like an entire year of self-work to get to where I am now, to feel, you know, able to live like this. I didn't think I'd be able to live like this 18 months ago, but now my chronic pain doesn't define me. It's just something I have to deal with every now and then.
Yeah. And I suppose it is a now and then rather than constant now, because of all the work you're doing. You know, Emily, tell us a little bit about your design plans. Tell us a little bit. I mean, you've told us about the trajectory of what went on, but tell us now about what you're doing with it all. And, you know, the fact that you've got a new website. Did you design that, or did you get it designed? What else did you do? Like, this
I've
girl,
done everything myself.
Is amazing. What was that?
I've done everything myself. Last week got lots of different people over to do photo shoots and to have different body shapes and different styles as well, and edited them all on the website on Saturday. So there's quite a few tactile jackets available. Can
I interrupt for a moment?
Yeah, of course.
Tell us about when everyone was trying on the jackets and what they did when they found the stuff in the jackets, because they didn't have any idea of what they were.
Yeah, I really, really wish I recorded it, because the way I did it was I took photos of everything, and then I said, all right, now put your hands in the pockets. And then I took little videos of it to kind of montage into a promo. And every single person, the first time they slipped their hands in the pockets, they were like, oh my gosh, it's so soft. It's so nice. And like, I spent a little bit extra money, but I got really, really, really soft faux fur. So I love the feeling of it. It's just so relaxing
and cat-like.
Yes, very cat-like.
Without the allergy type, effect. Yeah.
But
so
my plans for the future, I'd love to release some like dementia smocks and other clothing items, and I just want to use my skills and my knowledge and my creativity to be able to help people. I was raised by a mother who literally dedicated her life to helping people, building her own charities. She worked as a midwife. She raised 6 children. I guess I just have that drive in me, and I always wanted to help people, but I kind of felt a little bit superficial in a way working in costume, and now I've just found the best of both worlds. I'm designing and creating something that really can change the quality of life for a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, when Emily told me about this, I thought, what a lovely interim way to actually face your fears and just be yourself. Be the person that you want to be, And there's so many other ways of most of the people that have got chronic pain have got wonderful, wonderful attributes, and they put them aside to sort of stay in that space, but they don't need to, really. I think in a way also, Emily, something else, like you said your mother's sort of like her spirit sort of drove you on to take another step. But I think that it's your spirit that came out of you and said, I'm overcoming all this. It's sort of like your mother might have been an inspiration, but I think it's you that drove this. And I think that people watching us sort of remember that you've got a spirit that can drive, you know, for your good and for the good of your family or your friends or the world, as Emily's doing. And she's shown that by the slow, what's the word? The slow fashion. Yeah. And just recycling stuff and spending time at the thrift shop, finding stuff that's appropriate and that can be reused. I mean, that's a wonderful, you know, we don't all have that gift, but there's all sorts of different gifts that we've got. I mean, Tova and I didn't know we had the gift of doing this, did we?
No, it's really, and you know what you have just, you know, stirred up in me about the animal is that, look, you know, like Rose always says, we're made for love. You know, we're humans and we're made for love. And I've learned over many years of therapy that we are relationship beings. We want relationship, whether it's with ourselves, you know, with the pain. And with an animal, it's a relationship, but it's almost like you get to practice. Like it's easier. It's easier with an animal than a person. Let's call it.
That's so true.
Right. So what I'm saying, but the practice you have with the animal is you can look at that and say, this is healthy. And yes, it's not balanced, but it's healthy. And I want to take this relationship that I have and what I feel with my animal is what I want to feel with my boyfriend, what I want to feel with my boss. I want to be able to have a sense of balance. I'm looking at how you can learn from that. And I used to and I'm not going to make fun of people with animals. I mean, I grew up with dogs and I would love one, but there's a big responsibility. And the bottom line is any relationship is a big responsibility, especially with ourselves. And that's what we're talking about here, is about yourself. And there are people who are just talking about how inspiring you are. So I want to know when you're going to give us autographs. You're so humble, you know, like humble, vulnerable, but not weak, like humble and strong. And like, I am woman, hear me roar, you know?
Oh my gosh. That song I was on repeat all week last week. I'll tell you a little story quickly. I can't really explain it. My memory is a little bit fuzzy on it, but when I was about 7, I had a massive fear of having a shower. I can't explain it, but I just didn't want to step in the shower, and I thought I might drown or something. But my sister would stand in the bathroom with me and would sing that song. She'd be like, I am strong. I'm like, strong. I am invincible. And would just chant that song, and it would give me the courage to go have a shower by myself. But, you know, songs do have power.
Yeah, that's a gorgeous story, isn't it? Like, and that's that connection, you know, like as Emily was sort of talking about the connection with the cat, and then Tova went over to the connection that the cat is actually, or the dog or the horse or whatever, or the dolphin and the dolphin boy.
Yes.
That whole animal thing, there's no expectation that the animal will bite back. And somehow we have an expectation that our loved ones will bite back.
So,
and I think it's important to notice that they don't necessarily bite back, but we have that a dread, you know, like, what would you call it? You were saying, Emily, about putting plans in place so that you're not anxious, and I thought, you know, maybe we should put plans in place when we're having a family gathering or those sort of things, that whatever hurt us in the beginning isn't going to hurt us now because we're already grown. And the feeling we had when we were 6 or 7, as Emily was talking about, is no longer with us. So if that we bring that into consciousness when we are relating with our loved ones, then that original hurt, it doesn't take it away, but it softens it, and it allows us to actually experience that present moment, so that when we're with our animal and we're touching our dog, one of our colleagues actually has her dog in the therapy room with her, and when the patient cries and gets upset, the dog sits next to the patient, and the patient can actually reach down and touch the dog. So, and the dog recognizes the grief or whatever that's coming up for the patient. And that's remarkable about animals. Yeah, yeah. And Emily's cat, did you hear her saying about it sitting next to the hip that was sore? So the cat knew instinctively that area of that person's body. And, you know, in palliative care and that sort of thing, we always try and make sure the animals are with the patient and close to the patient, which they give them comfort. And they somehow, the animal seems to understand what's going on within the patient. Oh, yeah. And, you know, you'll see people in palliative care, and they'll bring the horse up to the window or whatever, and the horse and the person will connect. And it's beautiful. And, Emily, it's just been awesome you sharing with us.
Any more questions? We're going to say goodnight to Emily, and just thrilled. What amazing information. Rose, we have just been so blessed to have so many different kinds of healing. You know, healing is just comes in so many colors.
It does.
So many different sizes and so many different
Emily, that's true.
And does anyone else have any questions for Emily? But I did put your Laura, I put the website. It went up. It's above there. It's on the feed. And then afterwards, Rose will put the whole website on, and it's very bright. It's very sweet. And we would love you to come back. And look, I'm also thinking, like, you know, you're doing jean jackets. I'm like, well, what about this is like Tova thinking. What about if it's winter? Then what do we do? Well, you know, well, you wear 3 jackets. I mean, that's what we do. But, you know, this could be something very big. Emily, you could be hiring people and have, you know, jeans and big and big jackets and gloves.
Yeah, no, I've got so many ideas. I can't wait till I'm in a better financial position with the business and I can start bringing so many more products in. Yeah. I mean, at the moment, I think I've got this plan that every 2 weeks I'll update the website with whatever I've made over that fortnight, and I'm just going to create and make things that I think would help people or give them confidence, you know.
Yeah. Well, your story is amazing. And to the way it comes together with your sewing and the animals, it's just a beautiful. So I know that people will. I mean, the more that you can speak. I mean, you're actually very comfortable speaking about your situation, and I'm in all of your ability to go deep and just be like, it is what it is. I mean, Barbara, who's a new client, she's like, well, how did you get to know that so young? I mean, like, I'm just learning it. And Barbara's being humble. She's like, I'm just learning at 70. And I'm like, so really, Emily, you're an inspiration to so many of us. And we're going to have you back. We're going to have you back.
Did you see what Louise wrote to you?
Yeah, let's see. Beautiful, so inspiring. Karen Muhlenberg, such an inspirational woman. Here's what Barbara said. Barbara, are you still there? It said, first of all, she wants a jacket, and she's going to look adorable in it. And I love that you're going to thrift shops. I love that you're shopping secondhand. I think it's amazing. You're accomplishing so many things by the second hands and things like that. So what I want to just find what Barbara said. She said, you are one amazing young woman. Some of us take many more years than you to find these solutions.
Oh.
So really, we're very
Laura,
excited.
tell us more about the backpacks.
Oh, yeah. Laura's talking about, here's Laura's message.
Cool.
I need to show you the backpacks my daughter makes out of recycled jeans and thrift store. That's what we're talking about, Laura. That's it. We just got you some staff. That Laura, where's Laura? Laura's in Utah. Laura, where are you, Laura? Anyway, we are global everywhere. So have you thought about bringing on some staff? Because that would be another challenge for you.
Yeah.
Because there's your cat and there's your boyfriend, but then there's someone working for you.
It would. I actually in an ideal world, I'd love to employ people with chronic pain because I understand it. And I've kind of thought about the ways that it work because I know that I never wanted to seek employment with chronic pain because of my unreliability and the fact that one day I could be fine and the next day I could be in debilitating pain. So I want to create an opportunity for someone in the same position as me to have employment that they can do on their own terms. So it's basically my idea would be to give them a collection of things and say, whenever you get them done and have I guess make a payment guide for what each task is worth. Because that would give people with chronic pain something to do, drive, passion. It's definitely something I want to do in the future.
It would feel part of something. Yeah, it's standing for something. You know, like having a meaning and purpose, and it's such a big part of the work that Rose and I do. Such a big part. So you really, really, really have an inspiration. And, in your free time, you could write a book. In your free time, you could work with us. We have plenty of ideas for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll also, maybe we can give, if anyone wants your email. I mean, are you thinking of going global? Can you sell your jackets all over the world?
Yeah, I've got worldwide shipping available.
The post office? Or you you go to the post office and mail it yourself? Kind of thing.
Yeah, I do absolutely everything
at the moment.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, anyway, we're going to look for some. Employees for you. We're going to help you out.
That would be incredible.
Barbara said, "Fantastic! Start this as a nonprofit. How would that work? Have you thought about that?"
No, I haven't really.
No,
there is a really great kind of community where I live in Geelong, Australia, that they've got a disability employment services. So that is they are some people that I will be contacting in the future. But I mean, I did only release all of these upcycled tactile jackets on Saturday. It's now Tuesday morning, so it'll I've been working at a pretty fast pace, but I'm going to take a little bit of time just to let this sink in before I go to the next step.
Right.
Good. Yeah. Look, can you stay with that for a moment, Emily, and just talk about that for a sec? Because if the audience would just be aware of what she just spoke about, that self-reflection, she's got a drive, but she's able to titrate it. Can you just talk a little bit about that, Emily, and just sort of how that's come about? Because often with people with chronic pain, that they'll have a drive and that they just work really hard and they'll overwork, and then they need to step back because of the pain. But obviously what Emily's doing is being aware of herself rather than just the pain. Can you?
I guess I just plan for I plan for pain, and I do things I'll set myself daily tasks, and that's kind of the bare minimum that I can always do with pain. And as long as I get those done in a day, I feel like I've achieved something. If I don't get them achieved, I'm not hard on myself because it's really out of my control. And I also don't let myself have too many things on my plate because that is just asking for anxiety and overworking my body. I really think about things. I think that one of my most prominent traits is that I think and I plan and I don't know, I just think and think and think all the time about all the scenarios and all of the things that could happen and all of the ways that I could improve it. I just never really stop buzzing in my brain.
You've channeled it. You've channeled it into a way that's healthy, and you're balanced, and you feel it. You feel it when you're not in balance. I'm not balanced. So you bring yourself back, and you're not hard on yourself, or you've been hard on yourself to know what it feels like, and you're working on self-acceptance. It's just the ultimate goal we all, strive for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Emily, thank you so much. And
thank you
good luck.
so much.
Good luck, and I hope we'll hear lots more from you, and maybe in a few months come back and share a little bit more.
And if anyone has Instagram, or probably everyone here has Facebook watching this, Emmy Pelly Design is on both social media accounts, and I really regularly post what I'm making, and in my stories I make little videos of how I make them, and lots of photos of my cats too. So yeah.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for getting up early in the morning.
No problem at all. I'm excited now the sun's coming up. I'll start working.
Okay.
Oh, you too, yes. It's overcast here.
Yeah, it is a little bit.
Yeah.
So wonderful to meet you face to face, and someday we'll meet each other really face to face. And I'm thinking about buying a jacket. And so is another dozen ladies that came to visit us tonight. So we'll see what's incredible. I don't know anything about Instagram, but Gail's asking where to find you. So maybe you on the feed, you can put some information of yourself on the Facebook feed. And but really good. Have a wonderful day, Rose. I'll talk to you later. I'm going to go to bed. I'm thrilled to see everyone who visited us and shared, and they're all having a little conversation with themselves about you. And I'm just so proud to be here with you. Really, really proud to be here. And Rose, you know how I feel about you. I'm just, isn't Rose amazing? Rose is amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
I've known her for a very long time.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Okay.